Can you hear me okay? That's better. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for the campaigning you're doing. This is the borough with the greatest wealth and some of the worst poverty that exists in the whole of this country. Our message has to be, we cannot go on being a country that's so grotesquely divided between the very richest and the very poorest. We cannot go on with thousands of people sleeping every night on the streets of this country, hanging around stations, trying to collect enough money to get through another night in a shelter somewhere. These levels of inequality are unacceptable and wrong. We've had 8 years of austerity, 8 years of increasing homelessness, 8 years of frozen wages, 8 years of cuts to our NHS, 8 years of increasing waiting lists for social care, 8 years of more and more people going through a mental health crisis alone. And we have a housing crisis like we've never had before. Grenfell Tower was a warning to us of what happens, but it is the issue of housing as a whole across the whole country that we're committed to changing, committed to regulating the private rented sector, committed to building committed to building 500,000 council homes, committed to the idea of an affordable rent being truly affordable, thus reflecting local average incomes, not the absurd levels that this government has imposed upon us. And if you say to young people, what future do you have? At the moment, they're going to schools where the head teachers are having to decide which teacher to get rid of, which teaching assistant to get rid of, just to balance the books. They go on to secondary school, again overcrowding. They want to go to college, fees. They want to go to university, fees. Adult education, fees. Well, the 1945 Labour government bequeathed us the most wonderful institution we could possibly have, the National Health Service. Healthcare free at the point of use as a human right for all. The next Labour government's great legacy will be a National Education Service. The principle being that every child from the age of 2 onwards will get a nursery place. Every child in a primary school will get a decent meal every day. Hungry children cannot learn. And for those that go to college or university, they will not be burdened with a debt brought about by fees. Instead, we'll raise taxation to the big corporations and the very wealthiest, that everyone can get a university education if that's what they want to do. And real esteem, real parity of esteem for those that are wanting to undertake apprenticeships. But it will also be a government that will stand up for our natural world and environment and say to President Trump, you are wrong on the Paris Climate Change Accord. Support it, stand with it, because I want, as you want, as I believe he wants, to live on a planet that is sustainable. So I think we need a government that will do things differently. Next week are local elections all across England. Millions of people will have the chance to vote. I hope they will vote by reflecting on the austerity we've had, the poverty that's been imposed, and the opportunities that could be if we had a government that was dedicated to redistributing wealth and power rather than concentrating it in the hands of the few. A government that worked for the many, not the few. That is the offer we'll be putting forward. But I say to you this, when you knock on those doors, engage with people. Listen to what people have to say. Listen to what their wishes are. And say to them this: a society that works together and cares for all is a strong one. A society that walks by on the other side while some are poor and some are homeless and some are hungry is a weak and divided society. You cannot go on with these levels of inequality without paying a price. Therefore, reverse the process of slashing local government expenditure. Reverse the process of underfunding our health service, reverse the cuts to the police force, reverse the whole process of austerity that's been so damaging. And I just conclude with this thought. This week, the government has been exposed over the Windrush generation. A generation of people who came to this country to contribute, to work, to develop our society, our living standards, my health, your health, our transport system, our education, our universities, our industries are all staffed by people that have come from all over the world and made their contribution. To be then told, decades later, you shouldn't be here, go home, you're not getting a pension, you're not getting a house, you're not being allowed to keep your job. We exposed that. Diane Abbott specifically asked Theresa May herself that several years ago and was told there was no problem. We then have the Prime Minister forced to come to Parliament to apologise and say there will be compensation. I say this, that compensation must be for the jobs lost, must be for the homelessness suffered, must be for the misery they've suffered, and must be a recognition this will never happen again. Because as a society, as a community, we rely on each other. Those that have made their homes here from Commonwealth countries, from the rest of the world, from Europe, are welcome here, are part of our community and part of our society. And we stand up with them and for them. So when you go out campaigning, please carry that message of what the world could be like, what the world could be like with a government dedicated towards ending inequality and injustice. That is the message we're putting forward. But above all, in this borough of all boroughs, the levels of inequality and injustice are so grotesque. A council that has so let people down on the way it's delivered its services. There is an alternative. It's on the placard boards, and that's a message you need to carry to every single door you go to. Listen to what the people have to say. Convey to them the message that we're putting forward, and get them all to vote by post if they have a postal vote, or to be there next Thursday. And let's make next Thursday a day we put this government on notice. You're on borrowed time. You're on your way out. Labour is on the